Okay, so Marvel Rivals recently has been popping off. It's only been a week of this game's life cycle so far, and yet they're already popping out new content, skins, and stuff like that. But there's already been some talk of some of the newest characters that are coming to this game. So what I want to do today is I went through and I picked a bunch of Marvel characters that I know from the comics, movies, and stuff like that. And I wanted to talk about what I think they would be in Marvel Rivals, or if we even need them. So yeah, let's do it. Alright, so the way I have it listed right now is at our top, those are our vanguards, and this is in no like particular order about like at the top is better, lowers, worse. It's more just the different tiers of like what they mean. So the top one we have vanguards, which is the tanks in Marvel Rivals. We have our duelist, which is like our DPS, our damage characters. Then we have our strategist, which is more of like our support style characters. Not sure means that I don't exactly know. Maybe I can't think of anything specifically of what three of those type of classes they would fit in, and then don't need them, which it's pretty self-explanatory. I want to hop right into this. So I picked a bunch of characters here. I picked some pretty well-known ones. I picked some characters that I know from the comics specifically. Picked some characters that I only know from the shows and movies and stuff like that. But let's get it started real quick with a very anticipated character. Obviously, a lot of people want Deadpool. This guy right here, obviously. I mean, it's just Ryan Reynolds. I think this character is going to come into this game eventually. It's very obvious that this character is just popular enough to outweigh a lot of the other characters in Marvel. And yeah, he's going to get in the game regardless. He's in so many different Marvel games, and his movies do way too well. What I think this character is going to be, realistically, I think it's hard to imagine him not being a duelist, like a damage character. I think he has a lot of different options about a lot of things he could use. Obviously, his like most standard stuff, he's got like swords and guns, but I think because he's more of like a goofy character, I think they can play off of that and use some other random crap like chimichangas and stuff like that, because I do think there's probably going to be some other characters in this game, like Blade, if they come out, where they would probably be more focused on actually using those weapons. And I think Deadpool could, but I think they would probably want to play up to his like comical side. And so in that regard, I do think he would be a duelist. Up next, we have Domino from Deadpool series, and I actually thought about this for a while. I think even though she does tend to use her pistols and her like luck superpower, stuff like that, I think it would be kind of boring for her to just be another duelist. We already have characters that just use like pistols and stuff like that, and they just shoot enemies, and that's basically their own thing. I think it would be cooler if she was a strategist and maybe relied on certain like RNG style like abilities, stuff like that, where maybe sometimes with her gunshots, like she heals and maybe it does like a little bit more. Sometimes you get like a boost, like a luck boost or something like that, or maybe she could be based off like criticals or crit hits and stuff like that, and when she uses her ult, maybe her luck goes up, so her crit chance is a lot higher. That's what I imagine with this character. I think it could be pretty cool if they played into that. All right.
You know how long I've been waiting for this?
Gambit has been one of my favorite characters for a really long time. Really happy to see this man getting some representation recently in the movies and stuff like that. Such a goated character. He is such a damn cool design. Man's got the staff, he's got the accent, he's got the badass cards. This character would definitely be a duelist. I feel like it'd be weird for him not to be, because he has the up close and personal like melee attacks on top of like the ranged cards. I could just see him being a character that's just like, shooting out damage, like constant damage, and with obnoxious abilities. He could probably stun with his cards and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it'd be pretty obvious this character would be a pretty flashy duelist, and I think it'd be dope. I do think a lot of the characters on this list will probably end up being duelists, but we'll see. I might be wrong by the end of this list. All right, up next we got Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is another character that I think it would be hard to think of him anything other than a duelist, as he'd be warping around a lot and dealing a bunch of damage, and I think he would be pretty interesting in this game. I can't exactly think of anything that he could do other than warping around. We do have other characters like Magic who do stuff like that, but I'm sure that they were creative enough, they could figure out some things to do with this character. I'm sure there's some Nightcrawler fans out there that could pick some stuff, but yeah, personally I think best thing I could think of is probably like duelist. Alright, once again we have a character that has already been leaked, which is the Human Torch. Pretty sure we already know this character is coming into the game. I think this is a pretty obvious pick for a duelist, and honestly I think a lot of these characters are going to be duelists, like I said previously. If they didn't want these characters to be duelists, I would imagine they would have to be a little bit more creative and just make some of them heal, even if normally their thing isn't that they heal, because obviously a lot of these characters, they don't heal, that's not like their things. A lot of them aren't support, but I could see them being a support in like a fun way, like Adam Warlock. Like I wouldn't imagine him being a support, but he's a very great support. So yeah, I think Human Torch would be great. Obnoxious character flying around the map, shooting fire, kind of similar to Iron Man maybe with the movement. But yeah, I would be interested to see what they would do with it. All right, we got Emma Frost. Emma Frost, super popular character. This character was even in Fortnite. That's kind of crazy. This character would sell a lot, and honestly, I don't know what she would be. I think she'd be pretty obnoxious. She'd probably be somewhat similar to like Iceman if she was in this game, or if he was in this game. But I think it would be more interesting to imagine her being like a Vanguard, like maybe like a tank with a bit more range. I think it would be pretty cool. We already have a few different tanks that use range stuff like Doctor Strange and stuff like that. And I think with just this character's personality and the way that she's usually portrayed, I think it would be pretty cool to see her as a tank rather than just like a standard duelist. So yeah, that's my mind. We got Mr. Fantastic. Now I think with the way that a lot of these characters work, considering we don't have too many of the Fantastic Four in this game yet, I would like to imagine that all of them would be in different like things. I would imagine, let me grab a few of them. So we have Sue Storm, we have Mr. Fantastic, and then where is Ben? There he is. Okay, so I'm gonna start with Ben real quick. I think it's pretty obvious that the Thing would have to be a Vanguard as well. It's, just from his design, this character is a tank. I think it'd be a pretty damn cool one, similar to Hulk and stuff like that. Sue Storm, I think pretty obviously this character would be a strategist. And I think a lot of that is because typically in the games that she's in, she tends to have more of a support role. She would be a pretty interesting character if she was able to give like shield bubbles and stuff like that to her teammates, stuff like that for support, and also going invisible to evade like snipers and stuff like that. But yeah, I think she'd be a pretty interesting strategist, and we definitely got to get the whole Fantastic Four in here. All right, then the leader, Fantastic Four, we got Mr. Fantastic. Him being a leader, I'd like to put him as Vanguard, but I don't think he is the toughest guy. I would imagine him being a bit more squishy, literally. So I could see him being possibly like a duelist, if not also a strategist. So I'm just gonna put him in duelist as well. I think, yeah, I mean, he could use some like abilities that would probably be pretty annoying. I definitely don't see him being a tank. I would have to guess probably like a duelist. He'd be a pretty annoying duelist, like stretching out and grabbing people, pulling them in maybe for combos. That'd be pretty sick. All right, Cyclops. Now, originally when I got into Marvel Rivals, I had no idea there were going to be certain characters that were going to be Vanguards, characters that I wouldn't imagine, such as Doctor Strange and Thor. And in Cyclops' case, he is another thing that I think, while normally he would probably be like a duelist, I don't know. Maybe it's just the personality, but I could see him as a Vanguard. Like, I know that Mr. Fantastic's also like the leader of his group, but I don't know. I feel like it'd be pretty cool to see like a tanky Cyclops that'd be like walking around and giving buffs to teammates and stuff like that, and commanding like the X-Men to do more damage, stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be pretty cool to see him as a Vanguard. That's my guess though. Speaking of more X-Men, I want to talk about Rogue. I think Rogue's pretty interesting, right? Because she would steal powers. I could see her being a duelist as well. That's the thing, right? Like, I think because she has such like a weird ability, originally I'd want to say strategist, but no, I think I'm gonna go duelist with Rogue. I think the ability to be able to fly around and deal damage, I think it'd be pretty interesting. She might have something similar to Loki, where instead of just stealing ults, maybe she happens to steal like the opponent's like a special move or something like that. Maybe she has like an open slot where she can steal a special move from somebody. I don't know. They'd have to think a little bit with how to use this character, but I don't know. I could see it. I think she'd be pretty good. Alright, speaking of X-Men, we also have Jean Grey. I think it's weird to imagine this character being anything other than a duelist doing a ton of damage and obviously being able to come back. I do think her comeback feature in a lot of the other games that she's in should be something that comes back in this game as well. And, considering that there's another, like, person who does fire, we got the, the Human Torch, I wouldn't think that would be enough to make her have to be something other than duelist, considering that she also has like mind powers and stuff like that. So I would say duelist is pretty fitting. I mean, I think maybe she would be a bit squishier than like you would think with like a Vanguard, but she can like come back. Maybe that would be her thing. All right, now let's move on to someone related to another one of those characters we just talked about, Jean Grey and Cyclops. We got Cable. Now, Cable is a really cool character that I don't feel like we get to see as much, and I think Cable is pretty obviously going to have to be a Vanguard himself. I think that we already have a character like Punisher that plays pretty decently similar to Cable, and so I think it might be a stretch to put him in the game, considering that, like, I know he has different abilities, obviously, but just the way that they usually portray these characters in games, I can't think of what they would do other than just make him shoot people. They would have to really rely on, like, a lot of the powers that he uses. So, yeah, I think Vanguard, he's usually seen as, like, a pretty tanky guy. I could see that. Alright, next I want to talk about some of Marvel's most well-known, like, brawler characters. We got America Chavez, we got Jessica Jones, and we got Luke Cage. A lot of these characters I feel like would be pretty difficult to add if you had them all in, because I kind of would see most of their abilities being incredibly similar, but just, like, portrayed slightly different, like, visually. But, like, power-wise, I really wouldn't expect to see much more, like, difference between them. So honestly, the best way I could think of doing this is probably to split them up into different, like, groups. So I would probably say that I could see America Chavez probably being a Vanguard. I think it would be pretty cool to have a brawler that can also just be tanky as hell, taking a bunch of hits. And in that same spot, I think Luke Cage would be in the same spot, though I would imagine that they would probably want to decide one or two of these characters, because it'd be weird to have both of them, because I genuinely do think they would do a lot of the same things. And then Jessica Jones, I would probably say, is a duelist. I don't imagine her being as tanky, but I do think damage-wise she is still be able to, like, you know, brawl and duke out with a bunch of people. Personally, I don't know a ton about that character. I just, you know, I would imagine Jessica Jones, based off from what I've seen in shows and stuff like that, to be most likely to be a duelist, because I think she'd be a bit faster. She'd be, like, you know, dealing a lot more hits. Alright, then we got Arrow, one of the more modern Marvel characters in the Japanese style. Arrow's pretty dope. I read a little bit of Arrow recently. I think it's a pretty cool concept for a character. And I think Arrow would be weird to have anything other than a duelist, but I could also... Actually, you know what? I could see her being a strategist as well. I think just because we don't have a lot of strategists, I would say it would be cool to have Arrow there, considering this game already probably has a decent amount of characters that are, like, aerial mobility characters that, you know, like, shoot abilities from far away. I think it'd be pretty cool if we had, like, a support that did that, you know, a strategist that can do that from far away, and maybe also get up in the air and, you know, push opponents away and then, like, heal her teammates. I think it'd be pretty dope. We got Ant-Man. Ant-Man is a weird case. Ant-Man's kind of strange, right? Because I feel like he would have to be somewhat similar to how Hulk is in the game, where maybe he, like, starts small, and then if he gets his ult, he can go, like, really big, like kaiju size or something like that, and deal a bunch of damage. But I don't know, he's weird, because I also feel like they'd want to utilize the ability of him getting small, but, like, that's not fair in a team game like this, because, you know, you just can't hit him. So I don't know. He'd be weird. He'd be really weird to bring in. And honestly, in that case, I think I'm gonna say not sure. I don't exactly know where they would put him. That would be my guess, maybe Vanguard, but I'm gonna say not sure, because I don't know how that would actually work. Alright, next we got Blade. Alright, Blade is, like, one of the most wanted characters in the game. Put Blade up here, bro. Put him up here on the top. Like, right next to Gambit, dude. Yeah, Blade needs to come. I'm pretty sure we've seen Blade get leaked, and so if that's real, then damn, I'm excited. This is one of the coolest Marvel characters of all time. One of the best, like, Marvel, like, trilogies too. Like, so, man, it is definitely not talked about enough. Blade is such a badass character. Definitely have some, like, Dante combos and stuff like that. I would just love to see this character in the game. I think it's pretty obvious he'd be a fast-paced, like, duelist who could take out, like, hordes of enemies. I think he would be fun if he was a duelist similar to other characters, but his style was a bit more, like, maybe he can do a ton of damage, but he's a bit harder of a character to learn. I think it'd be interesting if he had, like, a pretty, you know, like, it would take a while to pick this character up, but once you did, you could just, you know, destroy people. Where on the other side, Magic is a bit more, like, simple. You know, she doesn't really have a ton going for her, but what she does have going for her is great, amazing, really easy to pick up and use. And yeah, I think Blade would be cool to be, like, the other side of that. Next, we got Thanos. Everybody knows this character. Is it weird to imagine him being anywhere other than Vanguard? I don't think so. I think it's pretty obvious Thanos would have to be a Vanguard. This is one of the tankiest Marvel characters of all time. Dude has taken, like, planetary-sized ships to the face. He's a huge dude. I could think of a million things they could do to make this character. They could add this, like, the weapons from the movie. They could add his, like, comic book powers. And God, he's been on, like, a million different, you know, like, comic books. He's got so many things he can do, you know, so I think he'd be a great Vanguard. Next, I want to talk about Black Cat. So Black Cat, I think we do have a few characters already that can, like, you know, hop around the map, similar to like Spider-Man that would just get around and do quick damage with like quick combos. So in that case, I would imagine if they did add her, she would have to just be like really similar to Spider-Man in that regard. Because, I mean, yeah, I think a lot of Spider characters would be like that. I honestly think the only few that would probably be a bit different would be maybe like Spider-Woman or like Miles. And speaking of that, I would say we have Spider-Woman right here. I think it would be cool to have a Spider-Man character that is a support strategist, because, you know, we have the tanks, we have the duelist, and yeah, I think it'd be pretty interesting with her somewhat different powers to be like a strategist focusing on healing the opponents while also getting in and dealing a ton of damage with her acid and stuff like that. It would be pretty dope. All right, we got Captain Marvel. Me personally, I think Captain Marvel, if we looked at her from like a basic line, we'd just say, yeah, she's probably like a flying duelist like Iron Man or something like that, shooting lasers and crap. But I think it'd be cooler if she's a Vanguard. A lot of the times they've been portraying her recently. Obviously, she has Captain in the name. I think we should play off of that and go on the idea of maybe one of those flying characters similar to Iron Man, but she's a bit tankier. So maybe she stays lower to the ground, but she has like a bit of like aerial mobility occasionally. I think it'd be pretty interesting. I don't know how they would make it work, but I don't know. I think they could do it. All right, then we got Colossus. We already have magic in this game. We need her brother. Bring this man in. Is it obvious that he should be a tank? Yes, it's very obvious he should be a tank. I don't really know what to say about this character, other than the fact that he would be, you know, just like the Thing, just like Hulk. Big, brawny, you know, character that would take a lot of damage. So yeah, Colossus would be sick. All right, then we got Daredevil. Now, Daredevil, realistically speaking, I think would be somewhat similar to Moon Knight, as in a duelist character that has abilities that are a bit more like far-ranged. I think even though he's like an up-close and personal fighter a lot of the time, I think it'd be pretty interesting if he had abilities that could show where like the enemies were on the map and stuff like that, and maybe he could like help out his team in that regard. I don't know. They would have to go one or two different routes. They would have to probably focus either one, just giving him the sight and he could tell his teammates where the enemies are, and then they could go in and sneak and flank. And in that regard, I think he would work as a duelist because he could flank behind the enemy team and take out people that are alone, which would be pretty cool. Or I could see him being a strategist who gives the enemy's position away in certain moments so he can tell the team where to go. But, you know, realistically, I think with the way that he fights normally, he's usually like a duelist is what I imagine. So, all right, then we got my GOAT, bro. We got my GOAT, Nova. Nova, I think it's pretty obvious to be a duelist. I can't really see him being anything else. Nova is such a badass character, though. I think he'd be really, really annoying in this game. Genuinely, he would probably be the most obnoxious character in the game because he'd be like Iron Man, dog, and then he would just like rocket into you and stuff like that. Yeah, I can see this character being obnoxious, and I definitely think he'd be like a flying duelist or something like that. All right, then we got Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck is pretty interesting. I think they would have to play up his abilities of just being like not a traditional like Marvel superhero character, and I think they would probably have to play on him being more of a strategist. They could give him whatever they want. You know, he's a goofy character. They could just give him whatever they want to make him become like a strategist that could help support the team. I think he'd be a fun pick, so that's why I put him in here. All right, we got Gamora. Gamora, I think, is pretty obvious as a duelist pick as well. She's similar to Blade and other characters like that who use, you know, swords and guns at the same time, similar to like a Dante-style character. We have a few of those, it seems like, on the way. And yeah, I mean, if they just, you know, differentiated her moves from Blade a bit, I'd imagine we could have two different characters that play similar, but, you know, have different abilities and, you know, maybe utilize their abilities on different sides of the map and stuff like that. So yeah. I could see them both being duelists, honestly. We got Green Goblin. Now, Green Goblin is a menace, but I actually think it'd be pretty cool if Green Goblin was a strategist. You know, we have Loki. I wouldn't expect Loki originally when I think of the character. You know, he's such a menace. You know, he does a lot of trickery, but he's such a menace. I wouldn't expect him to be a strategist because strategists are usually support. But if I take that out of my mind, I think about the one of the most obnoxious, one of the best villains of all time. We got Green Goblin. I think it'd be pretty cool if we could see him from the support side, maybe being another flying support character that is able to throw bombs that maybe some of his bombs heal the teammate, and maybe some of his bombs maybe like blind or like smoke the enemies, so they have you know, like struggle shooting at your teammates and stuff like that. I don't know, I think they can get creative with this character. I think it'd be great if they added him. We have a few villains from some other, you know, character series, so why not more Spider-Man? Obviously we got Venom, but Spider-Man is probably the most popular Marvel character, so that's why I put a bunch of Spider-Man characters in here, because I already know that we're probably going to see even more in the series. Speaking of that, last one from that series, we got Morbius. Now, Morbius, I think, would be a pretty interesting strategist as well. Obviously, with his, like, you know, fast-paced vampire movement and stuff like that. Obviously, I think he could be a pretty obvious contender for Duelist. But, like, I don't know. I feel like with some of his abilities, it would be more interesting to see him come at it from a different angle rather than just being another, you know, Duelist. I don't know. I really like the idea of seeing more Spider-Man characters on the strategist side, considering that we're probably going to get a lot of duelists. But, you know, out of the fairness of putting Spider-Woman and Green Goblin here, and I think, what did I put? I have Black Cat here in duelist. Yeah, I guess I could say he'd be I would say duelist or strategist. So I would probably say, I'm just going to say duelist for now. We just have a lot of duelists, so I don't want to keep filling it up. But to be fair, we don't know what characters are going to be like until they come in. Juggernaut. I mean, it's in the name. Yeah, I don't really need to go on to that one too much. All right, we got Miss Marvel. Talked about Captain Marvel earlier. We got Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel would be really cool to have in this game. I think she'd be an incredible duelist, similar to Mr. Fantastic, but I think maybe where she could be different is her abilities. Actually, let me think about this. You know, considering that some of their stuff is actually like really similar, what if we swap Mr. Fantastic? Because I did say Cyclops, you know, based off his personality and his usual role, would play as a leader. He could be a strong vanguard. Maybe we could have Mr. Fantastic being a similar type of character to Miss Marvel. Obviously, they have a lot of like similar power with their, you know, stretchy abilities and stuff like that. Where one of them could be more of a tank version of that, and one of them could be more of the DPS version. And I think considering that one of them is actually the leader of their group, I would probably say it's Mr. Fantastic. So I would say Miss Marvel would be similar to that, but she would probably be a duelist, more getting in there, taking out characters, less leading her team, and more just dealing damage. Then we have Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer is the GOAT, bro. Silver Surfer is one of the coolest Marvel characters, one of the most unique characters. And honestly, I love this character and I really want to put him in the game, but I genuinely don't know where he would go. When I think about it, I mean, I feel like he's such an insanely fast dude. It would be weird to put him anywhere other than duelist, because someone that fast would also probably need to be pretty squishy. But, you know, canonically, he's not. So it's like, yeah, I don't know where to put this man, honestly. I'll let you guys decide wherever you guys think you should put him. I'm going to just put him in not sure, but I still think we need him. Then we got Ultron. Now, Ultron would be pretty sick if we had him in a Vanguard. I think it would be pretty cool to see a, you know, villainous tank guy who can summon in like drones and stuff like that, and summoning clones. I think it's similar to how I'd imagine one of the Dooms to be, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really have too much to say because there's another character that I think would be really similar. And all right, now we're just left with my favorites. All right, so we have two Dooms because they did show off a future Doom and past Doom, and then they have She-Hulk. So let's talk about She-Hulk first. She-Hulk is one of my favorite Marvel characters. When I think about where she should be, though, we do have Hulk already in Vanguard, and I think it would be pretty interesting considering that She-Hulk is less of a team leader, stuff like that. I think it'd be more interesting to see her be one of the duelists that is maybe a bit more tanky. I don't know. I feel like she would be really broken, though. That's the only problem with her, is that I feel like she'd have to be a Vanguard with how tanky she usually is, considering she is a Hulk. But I think it would be cooler if they focused on the aspect of having her maybe be like just more focused on how much physical damage she does, but because she also takes a lot of risk, and we've seen in the comics stuff like that, that like she'll just get cooked because she just gets heated, bro. She just gets mad because she just has a bad temper, and she will just cook. Also, I'm talking about comic She-Hulk. TV show, get that shit out of here. But the comic book She-Hulk, she's base as fuck. I think comic book wise, like, yeah, no, she just gets heated and will get cooked, and I think that's hilarious. So yeah, I think it'd be fun to have a duelist She-Hulk where she just goes in and she can do a ton of damage, cook a bunch of people, but you know, you take too many risks like she normally does, she gets cooked, and that would be hilarious. So, all right, now we're moving on to the last two. Best Marvel character of all time, undebatably, it is Doctor Doom. If you disagree, I don't really care. We got Doctor Doom, Past and Future. They have shown off both in the trailer for this game. Now, what I think would be pretty interesting is what if they did, that's not English, if what they did was to make them, instead of just different skins, they made them different characters. And the way that I would imagine them doing that would be to have Standard Doom, which is our version of Doom that we usually know. I imagine this character would either be a Vanguard, tanky ass dude, just walking up, you know, just tanking every hit. You know, I think he'd be a bit more on the side of possibly like using a bit more of his power, where the other one would maybe be a bit more focused on using like his futuristic technology for like drones and stuff like that. I don't know. I think it'd be kind of interchangeable based off what you would think. But if I go off the way that I would imagine, it might be interesting to see more of like a strategist Doom. So maybe like a support Doom that brings in like a ton of clones or something like that. Somewhat of Loki, but maybe like brings in Doom bots, or maybe like if you try to kill this version of Doom, then like he just comes back and it was a Doom bot. I don't know. There's a ton of ideas there, but I honestly could see them working for either one of these characters. I would love to see Doom have some of his abilities based off the stuff that he has stolen from other characters. Obviously, this man is a scientist, so he's a genius. He can build whatever, but also he has a strong understanding of like magic and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, he could just do whatever. You know, this man could literally control anything. And yeah, I would love to see him in any role. Honestly, I think he could work as a Vanguard. He'd be a great tanky dude. I think he'd be great as a duelist because he just has so many like cool abilities. He could do a ton of damage, and also strategist because, you know, a lot of times he is a bit more in the back, focused on strategizing. So yeah, that's my list right now. I think this came out pretty good. And yeah, I'm excited to see who else they bring in for Season 1. We've already got some characters leaked and confirmed so far. I will be talking about some of those characters pretty soon. And yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next in this game. So hope you guys enjoyed this. That's going to be it for me today. Feel free to let me know how you feel about this list down below. And I'm out of here. So peace.